The second Category 5 hurricane of the season has arrived in the form of Hurricane Humberto, and now a major Category 5 hurricane, thankfully over open waters of the North Atlantic north of Puerto Rico, moving off towards the west-northwest. Right now, the hurricane has winds of an astounding 160 miles per hour and a pressure of 925 millibars, moving west-northwest at 10 miles per hour. And we are mid-Codiello on T-coast for the storm right now. We're mainly focusing on Bualoy in the Western Pacific, moving through the South China Sea towards Vietnam as a typhoon now. So, regarding Humberto, it is a very powerful storm right now, located north of Puerto Rico, thankfully over open waters. It's got a fairly good wind field though, but it's located 437 miles away from San Juan, 61 from Bermuda, 1,000 miles pretty much from Marsh Harbor, and 1187 from both Miami and Cape Hatteras. No land areas are at risk for the storm over the next 5 days for immediate impacts, though the isolated rip current threat, of course, is always going to be a hazard with these hurricanes that move offshore, especially in the Eastern Pacific and the Atlantic basins. So, going back to the wind field here, it's got a fairly decent wind field to it right now, 110 nautical miles, mainly on the eastern side of the circulation. Remains to be seen actually how big the storm is going to get over the next few days. It does look like that it's going to undergo an annual poison cycle, and that is going to make the wind field grow even larger. So thankfully, of course, no watch or warnings are in effect, and I really don't think that there's going to be any watch or warnings over the next 5 days. Maybe a tropical storm watch for Bermuda, but I really think that's going to be it. Nothing really too major in terms of wind impacts from this storm, and regarding the storm surge threat as well, nothing too much at that point. So, regarding the hazards, as I've alluded to, rip currents remain the primary threat for Hurricane Humberto. Obviously, with these major hurricanes that move offshore, we've always got this rip current kind of thing. The same thing as what I've said for storms out in the Eastern Pacific Basin. Remain vigilant and remain up to date with your local rip current statements regarding beachy areas in the Caribbean islands, Bermuda, the Bahamas, and the U.S. East Coast. In particular, if you are on the U.S. East Coast and the Bahamas, pay attention to tropical depression number 9 in the area. That could be a substantial threat, and the forecast isn't even set for that storm 72 hours out. That's 3 days out in advance. The forecast is not set on tropical depression 9. We'll update on that though later. But regarding Humberto, here's what we're taking for the track forecast over the next few days. There remains to be some room for additional strengthening in the next 12 hours or so, but it does look like an annual poison cycle is coming, so I do think that this intensification trend is going to be short-lived. As the storm heads out towards the north, it's going to undergo an interaction with probably tropical storm Imelda at that point. And then it's going to take a very quick turn up towards sea here, north of Bermuda, moving very quickly off towards the northeast here, and becoming as tropical by day 5 of the North Atlantic. Very big storm at that point. So here's what the forecast cone is saying right now, pretty much reflecting our current thoughts. Major hurricane for the next 3 days or so. Very powerful storm moving off towards the northwest, but generally there is some uncertainty on when that northeastward curve is going to happen, but thankfully doesn't look like it's going to get anywhere close to Bermuda. Bermuda isn't the forecast cone, but I do think that the storm is going to pass safely north of Bermuda, and then of course by day 5 it's going to be a post-tropical cyclone moving very quickly over the North Atlantic at that point. So most of the model estimates, or the satellite estimates right now, are pretty set in stone that this storm is a Category 5. Remains to be seen if there is some room for some strengthening in the short term. And just because I put in AMSU there. Down at 40 knots. Oh my goodness. What is it doing? I have no idea at this point. But AMSU down at 40 knots for the storm right now. What is it doing? So here's what the GFS model run is saying. Here you can see the tropical depression 9 on the left, Humberto on the right. Look at how massive Humberto gets towards the later part of the forecast period. Very, very powerful storm, and you do see that Bermuda probably does get some tropical storm force winds. So I do think that there'll probably be a tropical storm watch coming for Bermuda in the next few hours, maybe even the next day or two. But regarding those hurricane force winds, those yellows, they really are going to be limited to the storm center. And even you can see as the storm turned post-tropical here, it's probably still going to have hurricane force winds over the North Atlantic. And you can see just how big the storm gets on the reflectivity side of things right here. It attaches to a front and really blows up in size as it makes that post-tropical transition past day 5, day 4. Remains to be seen definitely how strong it's going to be when it makes that post-tropical transition. Latest NHC forecast does indicate that it's going to have winds of 100 miles per hour when it does make that transition. Remains to be seen if it might be a little bit weaker too. But one thing is for certain, the storm is probably going to have hurricane force winds when it makes that transition. Regarding Tropical Storm 9, you can see it making a very quick curve out towards the east here, moving due east here. Remains to be seen where it goes after that, though. Remains to be seen. Remain vigilant on that if you're on the U.S. East Coast in the Bahamas. The rainfall track forecast, pretty much the same. Not really going to be seeing any land areas over the next few days under risk for significant rainfall from either Humberto. But we're going back to Tropical Storm 9 here. A pretty substantial rainfall threat for the portions of the Bahamas Islands and maybe even the U.S. East Coast. You can see, especially in the Carolinas, South and North Carolina, very heavy rainfall threat taking place there in advance of Tropical Storm 9. Regarding the total I'm seeing right now, maybe around 10 inches or so along Humberto's track. Of course, it's going to be over open water, so it's not really going to be too much to land areas. Regarding where 9 stalls, though, it might be up towards 15, maybe 16 inches or so, maybe up towards the 8 inches in the Carolinas and just offshore. We'll have to wait and see, though. Most of the model guidance, though, does indicate that the storm is going to move off towards the northeast, past Bermuda. But there is a little bit of uncertainty. Where does it make that turn? Does it make the turn a little bit off towards the east, like those black lines are that the NHC's forecast, closer to Bermuda, or maybe does it hug the westward sweeps and go a little bit off towards the west? That would bring the wind field away from Bermuda, and that would lessen the forecast. Remains to be seen exactly how close it's going to get Bermuda. Stay tuned for the next few days, and we'll have more details on that regarding the track forecast as the storm gets closer to Bermuda. Confidence will grow, of course. Water temperatures under these storms right now are pretty decent. It's got water temperatures for the next 2 or 3 days to work with, so it's got some room if it doesn't complete this amount of output cycle. If it does complete it quickly, it might have a chance of re-strengthening. We'll have to wait and see, though. Regarding where Tropical Depression 9 is, it's going to be going over the loop current over the southeast U.S. coast. Remains to be seen how strong that one will get too. All depends on the interaction with Humberto as well on that one. Both of these storms really going to interact with it. Both could change the forecast significantly. Several observations aren't really telling us very much, but you can see obviously the plots around Humberto pretty much indicating that the storm circulation or its influence is pretty large. So the storm's influence is being felt here. Stations reporting around the storm pressures down in the 1010s. It looks like 1015, 1016 on Bermuda right there as night falls on the island of Bermuda. So once again, alluding to those track forecasts, you can see the HAFS, the HAFSB, and the HMON a little bit off towards the west, though the GFS, the HMON, the eastern BRF, I apologize, and the latest NHC forecast maybe a little bit off towards the east. We'll have to wait and see, though. Maybe in future forecasts, as the NHC should back off towards the west, we'll have to wait and see, though. Something to watch very closely over the next few days regarding the track forecast. Regarding the intensity forecast, though, you can see that these model runs are hopelessly behind the NHC's track forecast this year. Very powerful hurricane moving off towards the northwest here. Remains to be seen how strong the storm's going to get. Maybe the HWF and the HAFS touching 150 knots. That'll be 175 miles per hour. Maybe a little bit of a drop in wind shear too in the short term. Maybe that'll help the storm intensify a little bit, but maybe an Iowa poison cycle in the short term may help the storm get reset for a little bit before that wind shear takes it back up again in the foreseeable future. Water temperatures and relative humidity, of course, all favorable environments for the storm right now. So overall, the storm is in a good environment right now, but for the time being, it's doing pretty good for the environment it's in. Remains to be seen, and once again, when does that Iowa poison cycle begin? It's coming, we all know it. Regarding the imagery side of things, look at the satellite appearance. I don't know if this appears better than Hurricane Erin. Some people might go on the side of Hurricane Erin, but either way, very, very beautiful satellite imagery. Unfortunately, daylight has ceased over the storm, so at this point, it's night over the storm at this point. So maybe if the storm holds its own into the sunrise, maybe we'll get some visible imagery. We'll have to wait and see, though. And I think if we do, we'll upload it to our channel. You can see right down into that eye. It is very, very, very warm eye that we're seeing right now with Humberto. I think last I recall, the eyes were even still warming as at the time of this narration. I think it was around 22 degrees Celsius, so a very warm eye here. You can even see it on the water vapor imagery. Look at how dry it is in that eye. A very, very solid eye wall for the next few hours. regarding this hurricane. Very, very strong, very, very tight, and very, very impressive as it moves off towards the west-northwest. Cloud tops, of course, are very, very cold surrounding that. That's where we're going to find those 160, 165 mile per hour winds right in that eye wall, right close to that eye. Thankfully, once again, far, far away from any land areas. Hurricane Humberto, the second Category 5 of 2025 in the Atlantic, remains to be seen. Maybe there'll be a third one on the way. But what an interesting season we're having so far here in the North Atlantic Basin. Thankfully, no impacts to land yet this season.